guys. Okay, so we are making this cherry almond cake. This is from my Robin Hood No Sift Baking vintage cookbook that I got off of Etsy. So lightly bursting with big bright cherries is the description underneath it. So a couple things on this one. It's made in an 8 by 8 by 3.5 inch pan. I don't have a 3.5 inch tall pan. I've got an 8 by 8 and it's only dark metal. I need to get a light metal. So if you have light metal, it is the best, preferably Fat Daddy-O. But I have not made a lot of cakes in 8 by 8. So I have a 9 by 13 Fat Daddy-O. I need to apparently go to Giggy and get this one because a lot of these older cakes are just made one layer, like the chocolate sour cream cake, one layer, 8 by 8. Anyway, but I grabbed my ruler and I'm like 2 1/4. So it'll have to do. I may not be able to put all the cake batter into it, but it's just a 1 layer cake. So that's simple. All right, the next thing, it says to blanch and halve the almonds. I'm just using blanched sliced almonds that I could buy at the store. And then you need to get 1.5 cups well-drained maraschino, am I saying that right? Cherries. What you've got to do on these though, it says to slice the cherries. So I'm just gonna do it one time. That's a lot. I mean, just 1.5, maybe dice them. It says slice, not dice. Gotta follow the recipe as is. So I'm just gonna slice all of these in half, and then that is ready for when I need to add it to the cake batter. Cherries are sliced, and I'm gonna measure out 1/2 cup of my almonds, okay? And then I'm gonna add my cherries to this bowl, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna coat them in some flour. So when you're adding things like fresh fruit, or even like the mini chocolate chips or regular chocolate chips, you want to coat them in a little bit of flour so they don't just sink. So I thought that was awesome that our cookbook has got the same instructions. So I'm gonna measure out. Now, I don't have the Robin Hood flour. I usually like to have everything exactly as called for in a recipe, but I don't have Robin Hood flour, so I'm using cake flour, which was in a lot of the recipes we did in the last couple weeks. So I think we're gonna be pretty close with this. And there's a whole blog post on my website about the difference between cake flour and all-purpose flour. So you can read about that because they're different and you need to use the right stuff for each cake, whatever it calls for, or you can make your own cake flour. Okay, so I'm just going to coat these. But like this right here, oh my gosh, I'm thinking cherry cobbler. I grew up with cobblers and crisp. My mom always made a really good peach crisp that I loved. And then sometimes she would just switch it out for apples or berries. I don't think she's ever done a cherry. Right, so the cherries and the almonds are coated with flour, and then I took the rest of the flour, which was just 2 cups, and then 2 teaspoons of our baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon salt. And I just have it in a separate bowl. I've mixed those together. That's really nothing new. We like doing that because we want the baking powder to be well distributed and evenly distributed in the flour. So it mixes really evenly here and we get a good rise out of our cake. The next thing, okay, so this recipe, it uses butter and shortening. So our vintage recipes that we've done thus far have just been shortening, and I've always tweaked them in the next round and added butter. So we've got 1/2 cup of shortening and 1/2 cup of butter. I'm gonna mix these with the sugar, get it nice and fluffy. So remember, beat the butter with your sugar for a while because that gets it nice and fluffy and helps to just create a little bit of air that's gonna be in the cake to help it to rise. And then I'm gonna be adding my flavorings. So I've got vanilla and almond extract. We've got a little lemon juice. We've got eggs to add and then some milk. So let me get our sugar and everything beating and then show you how to finish up this cake batter. And my sugar look really good in there. I'm gonna be adding a teaspoon of each of my almond extract and then also my vanilla extract. This is Mexican vanilla. And then we're gonna be doing 1.5 tablespoons of our lemon juice. So I have a large lemon. I'm just gonna go ahead and squeeze that juice right in. That's typically about, that looks like half of that one is maybe 1.5 tablespoons. I'm gonna go with it. So I'm gonna mix those, and now I'm gonna add 4 eggs. Again, those are room temperature. We always want room temperature wet ingredients. Oh, it smells so good. Now, when I'm adding my eggs, I'll add like 1 or 2 and let it mix for a minute. And then let me scrape down the sides of the bowl, and we'll add the other 2. Okay, now just on low speed, I'm gonna add the dry ingredients. Okay, so it doesn't specifically say when to add the cherries and the almonds, but after the creaming, you add the flavorings, the eggs, add the milk. Then mix in all the dry ingredients thoroughly. Turn into prepared tin filling, 2/3 full. And then we're gonna bake this at 300, so nice and slow, for 1.5 to 1 3/4 hours until the toothpick, inserted in the center comes out clean. Although I like it to come out with a few more crumbs on it. Then you allow it to stand or to sit in the tin for 5 minutes. Turn it out onto a wire rack and cool thoroughly before storing. So I think when it says mix in all the dry ingredients thoroughly, that's including our cherries and our almonds. So I'm going to, ever just have like a trash bowl? We'll credit Miss Rachel Ray with that idea. But ever since watching her show years ago, she always had a big like trash bowl for all her scraps of like vegetables she was cutting. And I do the same thing when I'm baking, just so I could put like all the used stuff in there, and then I just take it to my sink. Anyway, little tidbit. Okay, let's go ahead and fold this in. I hope this is right. I'm so glad there's lemon in there. Oh, I like that. And then, okay. I can't wait. I'm gonna pour this into my pan and get it baking. I'll let you know how long it takes, and then we'll taste it.